As this is a L'Ador Vador service, we turn to words of story. Before doing that, I would invite you into some personal reflection. When you think about the dignity of other people, how important is that to you? How readily in your consciousness is that awareness of the dignity of other people? Just think about that for a second. Now think about your own dignity and how you value that for yourself and how readily in your consciousness that is. And give some thought to whether you value one more than the other, or if you find them in balance with each other. So as you may know, in Judaism, the dignity of every human being is perhaps the highest value we have. It's the foundation upon which every other mitzvah we have rests. Because we're taught every human being is created in the image of God. Every human being, every single one, the ones we like, the ones we don't, the ones we think are wonderful people, and also the ones we think are horrible people, from a Jewish vantage, are embedded equally with dignity and deserving of that. So I want to invite you into that framework as I offer you a story. Now, this is a story that has been told over many years, many times, but I was reminded of it recently from Ted Perlman, who is sitting right over there. And this wasn't even planned, but he happens to be here tonight. And so perhaps this is beshert that it happens this way. Perhaps. Ted will tell us afterwards. So the story goes as follows. A young adult finds himself at a wedding. And while at the wedding, he sees one of his teachers from his childhood. And he approaches him and says to this teacher, "Hi, do you remember me? You were one of my teachers. I loved being in your class. It meant so much to me." And the teacher looks at this young man now and says, "I do remember you. How are you? Tell me about your life. It's been so many years since I've seen you. I taught you all the way back in the 3rd grade. Now you're grown. What do you do?" And the young man says, "Well, it's funny you should ask. I became a teacher. I'm a teacher just like you were." And so his teacher says to him, "Well, so how did you decide to become a teacher? What made you follow the path of education?" And the young man said, "Well, actually, I became a teacher because of you." And so his teacher is surprised by this and humbled and says to his student, now a teacher, "What could I have possibly done to inspire you to become a teacher? I was just a 3rd grade teacher. Nobody in the span of how inspirational your education must have been." And his student says to him, I can't believe you don't remember the influence you had on me. Don't you remember what happened in your class when I was in it?" And the teacher says, "No, please remind me." So the young man relays to his teacher the following story. "When I was in 3rd grade, back in the days of your class, one of my friends, my classmate in your class, his family got him a beautiful, fancy wristwatch for Hanukkah. And I really wanted a watch just like that one. But my family didn't have enough money for such a watch, and I couldn't get one. And I'm ashamed to say it, but I decided I really wanted a watch. In fact, I really wanted that watch. And I noticed that my friend placed his watch in his pocket one day. So one day when he wasn't looking, I went and I took it out of his pocket for myself." At which point, the friend returned to class knowing his watch was missing and reported it to the teacher. At which point, the teacher turned to all of the students in the classroom and he said to them, "It seems that a watch is missing. If you've taken the watch, now is the time to return it." And of course, no one returned it. And the young man said, "I was so embarrassed. I wasn't going to return it. Even though I knew what I had done was wrong, I just couldn't get up the courage to return the watch." So the young man said, "And here, my teacher, is what you said at that point. You told all of us that we would need to line up against the back wall of the classroom, and you would need to go through each of our pockets to discover who had taken the watch. And I, the young man, was horrified that I would be brought into shame in front of everyone. But then you said, 'I want each of you, my students, to close your eyes, and don't you dare open them while I check each pocket. No one is to see who has taken this watch.'" And so that's exactly what the teacher did. One by one, he went to each boy. And the student then said, "And you came to me, you reached your hand into my pocket, you pulled out the watch, but you kept going. You continued down the line of every student until you got to the end, and only then did you tell us to open our eyes. You returned the watch to its owner, and you never said another word about it." And this young man said to him, "I knew when you did that what it meant to save someone's dignity. You knew that in your hands you held my dignity. And you chose not to humiliate me. You chose not to think of me or call me a thief in front of my friends. And it made me realize the power that a teacher can have in the life of their students. And for that reason, that very reason, I decided I wanted to be a teacher so I could do the very same thing. So I thank you." But then this young man said to the teacher, "Really though? You don't remember this happening? When you look at me, you don't think to yourself, 'Oh, there's the boy who stole the watch.'" And the teacher said, "No, I'm not familiar with this side of the story because I want to tell you, I closed my eyes as well."